Eagles!
Hey, this is William Tincup and Ryan Leary, and you are listening and hopefully watching the Use Case Podcast. Ryan, how you doing today?
Oh, I am fantastic. How are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well.
Oh, wait. I can't hear you. What'd you say? Tom, should I just let this go the whole way? I mean, look, you give me
This,
two Philly guys in 1 week,
I know, I know.
you're gonna get it.
This is what happens. And by the way, Tom, what's funny is we recorded a podcast yesterday where two guys that were guests were from Fort Worth,
Yeah.
so it evens out. It
There you
evens
go.
out. No worries, no
Yeah,
worries.
but do you guys
Uh,
even have a fight song?
I'm not sure. No,
Yeah.
I would assume not, or
I
I would
mean, it's
assume
like
so, and I just don't know it.
I could play this all day. I could do this. Hey, I'll stop now, I promise. Unless you say
So
something I don't like, then
yeah, no, I think that's appropriate. Tom, do us a
Yeah.
favor, do the audience a favor, and introduce yourself.
Sure. I'm Tom Span. I'm the CEO of Brightside. My third job out of college, I was at Accenture for a long time, ran healthcare there, and left there to start a company called Accolade, which was a pioneering healthcare navigation company. Helped employers save money on healthcare by helping their people get the right care. And then about 7 years ago, one of my customers, the late Sean Levitt, who was head of Total Rewards at Comcast, came to me and said, Tom, you ought to start a company like Accolade, except for financial health. Basically, he had just done a study that said poor financial health was costing that company $3,000 to $4,000 per year per employee. So not just per financially sick employee, per employee. And he said, look, that's another complex system that it's hard to do the right thing. I mean, billions of dollars are spent every day making it easy for people to do the
yeah.
wrong thing with their money. Like, who's investing in making it easy to do the right thing with their money?
Yeah. So Tom, I know well, I know you got questions to kick off, but
No,
financially
you're
sick.
good.
I haven't quite heard that term. Explain it.
Yeah.
I think it's obvious, but for those that can't put it together, financially
Yeah,
sick.
probably my first year I avoided going back into my healthcare roots on this language, but the Financial Health Network is the largest nonprofit focused on improving the financial health in this country, and they do a survey of the country every year, and they pretty consistently find that only 30% of the country is financially healthy, which means actually 30% is or 70% is financially sick, and
Right.
25% is really sick, really, really struggling. And when Sean looked at the market and we looked at it, there were only two kinds of solutions. It was financial wellness companies, which
Right.
are CFP driven, they reminded me of wellness on the healthcare side, the kinds of products that only people who aren't sick use, like the meditation app or the gym membership or you still need people. You don't want to go without treating people's broken legs, cancer, diabetes, right? Those are the sick people. And on financial health, you had this wellness that was how to invest your money. I was like, it makes sense. A certain part of the population needs it. But most don't need a financial plan right now. They need to know, what do I do now? What do I do next? Right? And as I drew the analogy to healthcare, I said, there's no urgent care here in financial health, and that's really needed. And there's no primary care, nobody nursing these sick people back to health. And so we created a new category, which we're calling financial care, which is, encompasses financial wellness. There are people who need that, but it also deals with people coming in for emergency, which, depending on our employer, can be anywhere from 1/3 to 2/3 of the people that come in the door every day are, dealing with, I am behind on my rent. My car's in the shop and I don't have the money to get it out and get to work. I can't afford daycare. I need money right now. I'm staying up all night with my kids. so I can go to my call center job in the morning because my mom stole my Uber Eats, my car that I was using for the Uber Eats money that was paying the $600 a month for daycare, right? What that person needs is, some transportation ASAP, right? Because now they're on their car, they're taking Uber to work at the call center. So we solved that problem, and we found a benefit that subsidized 75% of her daycare bill, cut her daycare bill from $600 a month to $150 for 2 preschool kids. That she just didn't know was out there, right? There's a lot of that kind of money out there. And then, the other kind of notion of us having real solutions is we're tied to the paycheck because we work for the employer. So we've got the ability to have paycheck linked products. And if you're a lender or another financial solution and you're, being paid out of the paycheck before it goes in the person's bank account, you underwrite that very differently. So we got people that would otherwise be getting payday loans, getting loans at credit card interest rates, or people who, have racked up some credit cards, being able to refinance some of that at lower interest rates. And that's also where we tie our, savings account to and all those things. So it's easy, open in a couple of clicks, set it and forget it. So, there's a lot of good point solutions out there for the financially sick. There's earned wage access, there's these paycheck linked loans, there's student loan solutions, but they got two big problems. One is the people selling them depend on people to keep needing them, right? I charge $4 for earned wage access to get $100, and there's no business incentive to get them to financial health. The right answer for your student loans may be very different if you got 30 grand of credit card debt than if you don't. And so,
Right.
We try to put all these solutions on our platform, work with a lot of these other companies. We're not a bank, we're not a lender. We make zero money off of any product. That's core to our proposition, right? So we are 100% on the side of these employees that we serve and their families. But, the platform products can offer us good deals because we've got some scale now. We're reducing their cost of acquiring customers. And, we've got technology that makes it work a lot easier for people. So it's
Two
just a
things.
place now where it's kind of a new front door to financial services for these people, right? Because why wouldn't you come to somebody if they were going to save you time, curate a few good options for you? You knew you could trust them. You knew they weren't making money off of any of your choices.
Right. I think trust is a huge thing for us to explore during the call. Two things real quick. Give us the array of products, if you can, and then also talk about financial literacy, because I think that plays into the 30-70.
Sure.
Because we're not taught in high school or not taught in grade school. So take us through the products first, though, so we get a really good feel for those.
If you look, just to sit at our product at a slightly higher level, we've got, humans are core to our user experience, right? We've got this role called a financial assistant. Some percentage of those people are certified financial planners, but mostly they're just great at relationships and problem solving. And then we've got this set of products, and it's, the products we build into our systems that support our financial systems are the whole universe of products, right? Because if your spouse works for a company that has a credit union, has a good auto loan, we've got to be getting the person there, right? We want to curate them to the best possible options for them. It includes all the employer's benefits are on the platform, right? We load all those in our system, and we can talk about how those get leveraged. And then we've got, these additional partners that will help with everything from, as I said, coming up with cash in an emergency in various ways. And 50% of people come in from, who come in, probably the majority of people come in to like, oh, these guys have loans. Right. But 50% leave with something free, basically. Some benefit, some subsidy for their rent, something that didn't cost them interest, which is pretty cool. So, all the community resources, public benefits, all those things are in our, built into our platform. And then, things like debt management. We now got a partnership with a nonprofit debt management company and help people, create a plan, negotiate interest, and come out on the back end with paying a lot less interest and their better credit score. So, we're constantly looking for new new partners, but I'd say the bank accounts, the ability to access cash, and now some of these things. The other partner we've got is Savvy, is really good at helping people navigate student loan payments, right? They can save them a lot of money and just make it
So
easier to cut through the bureaucracy of the student loan process, really is what it's about, to lower your payments or get forgiveness when you need it.
right. So Tom, part of the problem that you're trying to solve is the financial stress on the employees and
Uh-huh.
helping them to do things better. How does that how is the financial stress on the employees hurting the actual business? So for somebody who a company that's listening to this now,
So,
what are the signs that
mhm.
they need to understand or see that their employees are showing that should drive them to reach out to somebody?
Yeah. Um, so the benefits are, um, they're significant, right? So we're seeing 40+% reductions in turnover if people use us versus people that don't use us pretty consistently across our customer base. Higher if they've got a page signaling product. Um, PricewaterhouseCoopers said people who are financially sick turn over at 2.2 times the rate of financially healthy. So some of this isn't surprising.
Right.
Um, there's a great book called Poverty in the Midst of Healthcare Reform that makes a great case that um, 30% of healthcare costs in this country are driven by poor financial health, right? That,
And hey,
it's the
Tom,
biggest. Sure.
to interrupt, when you say financially sick, just for the audience's edification, that's 70%. Is that based on social class or economic status? Like,
It, it
I don't,
correl it's cor it's correlated to income,
yeah,
but it's not the same, right? You can have
right.
somebody making
Okay,
$150,000 who bought too big a house for themselves and
got
is
it.
stressed out, right? And they're going to have these same problems, right? They are going to, the reason it drives healthcare costs is it's the biggest cause of stress, and stress affects every system in your body. 7 of the top 10 drugs are for stress, right? It makes you sick, right?
Right,
And then it's the biggest social determinant of health, right? What I learned at Accolade is the reason people don't do what they're supposed to is because some non-clinical reason, right? It's like I'm too busy and too don't have enough money or don't think I can afford it, or maybe I can do without this drug, right? 44% of people skip a doctor visit every year because of money, right? 25 defer a scheduled procedure. Those people wind up being more expensive for the employer because they're going to the hospital, right? We've got an employer that's measured 10% reduction in safety incident. That's because of the stress, this distraction, right? 10% reduction. More hours worked out of an hourly workforce, significant amount. Any one of these things pays for us. That's why we built this company to drive that ROI you're asking about, Ryan, for those reasons. Like people are showing up to work, they're showing up better, they're turning over less, and they're costing you less on your health. That's a
So
this is so
well,
fundamental, right? This is where people
yeah,
get food and shelter. They should be stressed when they're, it
right,
makes sense that they're
Maslow's
stressed.
hierarchy of needs.
Exactly.
exactly. So Tom, what is it that you're doing to help the actual employee get past this? What tools are you providing them, and how are they leveraging your system?
Oh, yeah. So, having this platform of products, everything from the ability to get $100 for free out of your next paycheck to, having loans and up to $30,000 if you need them at rates you can get them, or, savings account. These things uh, get people in the door for different needs, right? I've got a lot of credit card debt. I heard you guys can help with that. I'm worried about being able to pay my rent this week, or, um, we had a case where a um, mom called us because she was looking for shelter for that night because she came home from the hospital with a third kid under 5 to find herself evicted, right? We found shelter, but we also tapped into that employer's legal benefit because the FA was like, that doesn't sound right. And
Right.
the free lawyer she got access to, said, yeah, it's not right. She now owns that house. She got $150,000 pain and suffering on top of her costs. So she owns the home she was evicted from, 6 months earlier. but the journey starts with people coming in because they understand we have this and we can be trusted. 35% of people come to the door say they heard about us from colleagues. A lot of word of mouth. Um, and often, and again, it depends on the employer and the level of income of the person. It's a financial emergency. Sometimes it's just somebody who's 24 years old saying, "Look, my finances are upside down. I don't even know.
Right.
Like, I just don't feel like I got a handle on
Yeah.
it. I'm just stressed
Right.
about it, but I don't even know what's going on." And we can, do the assessment, help that person. But a lot of times it's okay. What do we do right now to deal with this emergency? And so, our financial assistants can ask a lot of questions, get to the right options
Right.
for them, given their zip code and their employer and all those things, kind of personalize this. And then we're using behavioral science to influence better. The core IP of our business is how do you influence somebody to do the right thing for their finances, right? And so
Right.
there's principles, right? If we help somebody in a pinch, now we say, hey, why don't you do us a favor and start saving, out of every paycheck. So
Right.
only 10% we survey these people when they come on board. And we ask them, do you have enough money left over to save? Do you have just enough money to pay your bills, or you can't even pay your bills? And only 10% say they have money left over to save, right? But 50%
Wow.
walk out the door saying they can save, or save it,
Right.
right?
Right.
So you get this situation where, uh, you know, people come in not believing, but there's a lot of science around hope and how do you build hope and how do you show that there's a path and how do you get them to believe? And then you start to build on that hope and that momentum. Um, I said, okay, now let's work on your credit score, right? Now let's save to the next goal. And it's no judgment. We don't care if you're saving for, another emergency or for your kid's college or for a tattoo, right?
Right.
It's just, it's your money is there to optimize your life. And so it's this very safe environment to figure out how to improve
So
your
do
financial health.
so do the benefits folks look at you as a kind of a new way of looking at an EAP, a financial kind of, you know what I'm
Um,
saying? Like,
I
because it's
hope,
services.
I hope they look at us, um, as a very different benefit from anything else. Right? We think we've got a whole new
Right.
category. If you look at EAP, they just don't go deep in any one area, right? And we're
Right.
deep in
Right.
finance, right? We've
Right.
got all these
Right. Right.
partners. We're in this financial ecosystem. We've got all this data on where to get money, you know, um, and we're learning how to influence, right? We're using AI now to really understand what's going on in these conversations and where we can help even more. And it's an exciting
Yeah,
place to be.
which
But
which
it's
we've
not.
seen some movement in mental health, and this is tangential to mental health, right? One might even lead to the other. Some could probably argue, but how do you? My question is, how do you drive it? Help the company drive adoption? Because
Mhm.
I wouldn't say famous. I've said this phrase a jillion times, and it's a benefit isn't a benefit unless people use it. So
Mhm.
you can call it a
Yeah,
benefit.
you know, our our problem is a little bit it depends on your perspective, right? I I'm looking at a world of 70% financially unhealthy, and all these people are costing the employers money, and I'd love to get to 70%. We've not done that, but we've had customers that easily get us to 40%, 40
Right.
plus percent. We've got more customers who are sort of like, we're a pretty young company still, it's fair. But they're like, you know what, I think I can afford is like 15% engagement. Can you get me only 15? And we can, right? We know how to tune it, right? And we get the 15, we tend to get the sickest there, and we'll take the cream off the, top there. But it's, this is something you need to offer to all your employees, because what employers find is when they limit us in some way to
Right.
who's eligible, you don't get the right people, right? The way you tune it
Right.
is not by limiting the eligible. You tune it by targeting your communications to the right people or with the right messages who need
All
us
right. So
most.
now something completely different. There's a vulnerability here. Like when we talk about, psychology, mental health, things like that, there's taboo. How does the company help break through that and you break through that so that they can be vulnerable? and trust you, and because you're creating a relationship with you that's separate from the company, because they don't
Uh,
want the company, damn sure don't want HR to know about their financial stress.
No, they're almost
uh,
going to be afraid of that, and
Hurrah!
some of that, I guess it
yeah.
depends on generational, but coming up from when I mean, we
Oh,
used to I've gone through a number of financial checks going into for applying for jobs, and I hated that, regardless of how young I was at the time. It just wasn't comfortable. My employer knowing where I'm at.
Yeah. Well, first of all, we certainly make it clear that we're never going to say anything to employer. We have discussions like, tell us this about your salary. No, we can't tell you.
yeah,
Hmm.
We can tell you how many, and we can tell you how many cases. We can't tell you that Ryan wanted to work on his credit score, right? Let
right,
alone
right.
Ryan wanted,
Hmm.
the things underlying this, the life context is super important, right? I've got a gambling problem. I've got this, I've got this girlfriend I'm supporting. So who knows these are real life stories that we run
Right.
into. And yeah, they don't want their employer to know. So you've got to build the trust that it's confidential, and you got to build a trust that is non-judgmental. There's so much shame associated with not being financially healthy. It's different than physical health in many parts of physical and mental health. I mean, you do get areas there that substance abuse and other areas, and even mental health has been historically a lot of shame. But there's a lot here because the common wisdom is people are just knuckleheads doing stupid stuff. And I learned it actually that's not the case. That was my belief in healthcare too. Like when your clients are United Healthcare now, and you're like, oh, these people are just stupid. They deserve what they get. But that's not the case. It's not a
Right.
financial literacy question. I mean, it's healthcare. Like people know I should spend less and save more. Like the core fundamentals of financial literacy, people know,
Get it?
and
Yeah.
they get it. And but it's hard. Life is hard. Like 60% of the country has a financial shock every year, and and 70% of the time it sets them back on the bills for 3 or more months. Right? That's where this and you see. So our communications try to normalize it, right? We don't go out to the holidays and say, "Oh, you need to have a budget for every person," because you're basically just telling people they're doing it wrong, right? And that's what
Yeah.
happens with a lot of
You're
financial
stupid.
wellness services.
Thanks. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
there's never a hand holding you through that process.
Right.
Is kind of what I'm feeling. I mean, it's. I
yeah.
know how to save. I know how to put money in the bank. I know I shouldn't go by this, but I do. But where's the
Mhm.
hand holding you through that process? And that's
Yeah,
kind of where.
That's
yeah.
what
So Tom, question I have is,
I
what are
love
we
that.
looking at in
Yeah,
terms of
part of it
companies,
is Ryan.
size
Just
of
to add
companies?
something there. I'm sorry, just to add something there. Right? This notion that life is hard, people are stupid. It, what behavioral economists do believe is that if you make something easier to do, they'll do it. Like it's
Right.
like what really
Yeah.
you got motivating factors and you got inhibiting factors. Getting rid of the inhibiting factors, like why aren't you doing it? Because it's too hard. I don't have a bank to say that. I got, I'm creating all this friction, and if I can make it easy, and
Hmm.
some of that's a hand holding that's important. And going back to the mental health question, I mean, this is obviously core to mental health. I had the CEO of Jefferson here, the former CEO, Steve Klasko, said to me once, you know, Tom, everybody's trying to expand the supply of behavioral health resources. You're trying to reduce the demand. Like you're getting the underlying cause of why people are stressed and anxious, right? And that's why we think it has this healthcare cost impact. I'm sorry, Ryan.
It's
Yep.
it's
I was asking about company size. So what are we looking at here in terms of companies that should be using Brightside? Are we talking enterprise companies, small companies? Is there a mix in between?
We're,
yeah.
we're talking mostly enterprise companies with some significant frontline workforces, but we're serving, home remodeling companies with 5,000 employees and, uh, insurance companies, property and casualty insurance companies with big white collar frontline workforces. Basically, if you've got a significant population in the thousands of people that are making under 100, 150 a year, then you probably have a lot of financially sick people in your population. And so those are the people, that's where the money is for the employer, and that's what we want to be driving.
So favorite customer story. You don't have to say their name, of course, but just someone that you maybe even was maybe they weren't on board or they kind of didn't believe at first. I
Mm-hmm.
love those types of people. They're kind of like, I don't know if it's going to work with our people.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden you turn around 2 years
Well,
later and you're like, I can't work at a company that doesn't have this. Like changes happen. Tell us a great customer story.
you're talking about an individual user or a whole employer? I'll do
Oh,
both a little
I
bit.
like both. I like both. Yeah, give us one of each.
So, our most public employer right now is Amazon. So they're out in public talking about us. And they came to us not really ready to roll out, but they sort of said, how fast could you come up? We just had tornadoes in 10 states at the end of 2021. And by March 1st, 2022, we had somehow figured out a contract to do a pilot in those nine states and eventually moved it to 12. And they, and then they're a very quantitative organization, right? We don't see the
Right,
ROI. We're not doing it. Like they really are trying to be the world's greatest employer, and they do care about their employees, but they believe in doing that. It's for some business reason for their
right,
shareholders,
right,
and
right,
that makes total sense. And that's our target customer. So they ran their economists and said, am I getting all the ROI I want in these areas? And they got it, and we're a week away from being national. I think we got 3 more states left to roll out there next week. And, we're super excited about our future with them because they're continuing to see these results. And they, every week we give them just 2 amazing stories about, their employees who are being helped. And that, it's now including, different levels of pay, different kinds of
right.
stories. It's just, it's fun to be serving them, but it's, also fun to work, with McKesson's also been public. They implemented us as part of their social determinants of health initiative, and they've been pretty public around that. And they've also decided to roll us out to the rest of their fulfillment workers. And it's just, it's fun to be viewed from those different perspectives. And they really helped us up our game and making sure we were reaching people who are speaking Spanish and and this is one of those benefits that actually gets more engagement from people of color and women than from white
Right.
men, partly because of the financial health disparities that exist there. But it's a very pragmatic thing you can do for everybody without discriminating that has an advantage. Like I wrote an article less than a year ago on, are your benefits promoting systemic racism, financial benefits, because they got retirements and they got financial planners. It's just not relevant to the financial system, right? Which are disproportionately Black, Latino, and female, right? And
Right.
if you do that, what we see, like our first client, to give you a client, so our first client we served at this customer was calling us from work. A lawyer had taken his last dollars out of his bank account because he was fighting a tax bill. So he couldn't go back to the hotel. He was already behind on paying the hotel he was staying at. So, it's a series of, and he doesn't have an ID. So like, he can't get a loan. He can't get a community benefit. Like, do you even live in this county? Right. And 2 years later, that guy's making twice as much money. He's been promoted multiple times. He got his own apartment. He saved for a deposit. Just this life change, right? And you pay a lot of attention to the first person who comes in the door at a big employer. And it's just been great to see, but that's happening over and over and over again. And it's, it's not only about the benefits to the employer from a retention standpoint, these people are advancing, right? They show up better. They show up more often. I look back at my time as CEO of Accolade, we had 800 health assistants, and we probably fired a lot because they weren't showing up consistently. They weren't showing up well. And I look back, it's like, I wish I had the benefit like Brightside, to offer them a bit more understanding of the financial situation could have fleshed out. It's hard for sometimes for people to tell their employer, but it's like, you know what I'm saying? I got to go, you know, do this thing or that
Tom,
thing because I don't have money to know.
what do you think drives the engagement? So when an employer has this as a benefit, what's driving the actual employee to say, yeah, I wanna take advantage or I wanna reach out?
Yeah. I'd probably put it in three categories. One is there's some normal benefits communications to build awareness, and it varies by employer what works. Some employers are putting us, you know, at the point where people do things like schedule hours and shifts, right? Because that's a financial decision. Um, but some people are just doing normal benefits communications. That's being in the employee journey. Like, why wouldn't every new hire get a checkup and deal with it? You know, a lot of times at these frontline jobs, these people have been unemployed for a few weeks or more. They're probably in a tough situation. Let's deal with that before it gets worse. Why not? When somebody goes on disability, they lose a third of their pay. Shouldn't they, you know, that's a time when they need it. You know, life events that employers see we're not in so much. But we're also tied in some employers to the 401k process, right? You want to get a 401k hardship withdrawal or loan, go to Brightside first, right? We just become the default in the journey. And if 401k loan is the right thing, that's okay. But a lot of times there's a better answer for that person if you can spend the time to get to know
So
them.
there's choke points where you can be put into to
Yeah. So we
intercept.
could be,
So
and there's
good.
also referrals
So
from other benefits, right? I mean, the
right.
employee service center can call it, you know, here's people that are upset about why their paycheck is smaller than they thought it was, or, you know, whatever, all those kinds of
Mm-hmm.
things. EAP often refers to us because they don't go that deep on finance, right? They're
Right.
a good starting point, you know. Same thing with healthcare. We saw a lot of times where we had customers where both Accolade and Brightside were in place, and it looks like the same person, but sometimes they present as help me with my health. I'm on disability. And sometimes they present to us like, hey, I can't afford what's going on because I'm on disability. And, you know, both are needed, but sometimes I think employers need to take a bit of a no wrong door approach, you know. But I think this benefit is as fundamental as healthcare. That's why I don't want it to be in EAP or in, you know, a lot of
Right.
these areas. It's like, this is as fundamental as health.
William, this
Ryan?
is where
Yeah, go ahead.
this is where I asked a question I probably shouldn't ask.
Oh, no, that's
So
perfect.
I'm gonna ask it anyway, right? So I
100%.
think Tom, although you're close, you're far enough away from me. You can't hit me. So I'm gonna ask this.
I'll give you
Um,
his address. You're good.
yeah. Historically, I've had trouble, and this is just me, um, with believing that employers care a lot about employees other than if it's going to affect their bottom line, which I
Really?
think is true of a lot of employees, right? Like they don't go in and think my employer is going to love me so much that I'm going to be here for life. When you're talking to an employer who is considering something like Brightside,
Mhm.
I think in my mind, I'm seeing two paths. One is what can we offer our employees? Individually, the person you're talking to may
Mhm.
feel internally, what can we offer the employees to make their lives better? Because I care. I care about the employees. But is the sale, is the actual pitch to the company, your employees are going to be happier for this. But if you want to get the most out of them, if you want to increase your bottom line, if you want them to show up in their best self, you need to do this. Not because you care about
Yeah.
them, but because it's going to benefit you. What's the actual sell to the company? Maybe not from your side, but from the company side. When they hear you and they're talking to you, are you getting the sense this is going to be better for the company, or is it going to be better for the
Well,
employee? What was the
I,
company?
I think companies are a little different. So like our clients are different. We have to personalize. I think there's a little bit of that. We built a company to drive ROI. So let's just start there. Like
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of with you, Ryan, that
Yeah.
you, you know, I'm a big believer if you create a great culture and you have great people, you're going to drive better returns for your shareholders, your investors, right? I believe it
Right.
about Brightside, right? I want to do that, right? Um, maybe not everybody's there, and maybe they won't pick us, but we often have to do both. And it, I think even the companies that care a lot about their employees, we just signed a contract with a family-owned grocery store, 50, 60,000 employees. They care a ton about their employees. Right? That was very important to them to hear the stories about how we were going to help. And, I'm not sure if that's as big a reason as the ROI. They're just, that's the way they are. But most,
That's
even if the total rewards person, CHRO, cares about the employees, they're going to need the other story from the CFO. Right?
that's right.
The
And
company
It's
proper doesn't. Right.
the
it's
company,
gotta
right?
solve both. I mean,
Yeah.
people that make a soft argument, and again, this could be about mental wellness or financial wellness or even health. If they make it, this is just the right thing to do. It's moral. It's ethical. It's the right thing to do. You're
Uh-huh.
going to attract some people, but like what we've seen in diversity, DEI in particular, you're going to get people with it's the right thing to do. But Ryan, you and I did a
Uh-huh.
podcast last week where our guest said, you know what? It is the right thing to
Uh-huh.
do. We're talking specifically about DEI. But she goes, we're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the best candidate, qualified candidate, because
Uh-huh.
we're going to get there because there's no counter argument to the best qualified applicant. And they will be diverse and inclusive and
Uh-huh.
all those things. So we're going to reach the goal. We're just not going to talk about it explicitly as this. So I see this kind of playing out the same way, depending on the audience. As you said before, as personal layer of personalization, you're talking to the CHRO, you got to both give them a business case for finance and operations and the rest of their peer group on
Uh-huh.
the C-suite, but you've also got to give them the other side, the softer side that says, yeah, this is in line with how you want to be a people first company.
Yeah.
So
Right.
this actually scratches that off, too. But when asked by all your other peers that maybe are a bit more ROI sensitive, great.
Uh-huh. And,
Yeah,
it's also, there's a lot of data that it overlaps, right? It's hard to tell which it is. Like,
right.
we're sitting here with an NPS score near 90, right? Is that because it's good for the employees, or is that good that the employer is offering a benefit that they love that much? And
Right.
it's kind of this kitchen table benefit, right? We're putting $1,000, over $1,000 in the pockets of the average person we serve, right? $1,000 a year, and so you I don't think anybody's not giving out pay raises because of that. But people, that's valuable to the company if they're offering for free benefits. That's putting money in people's pockets, right? And so, I just think there's a lot of synergy between doing the right things for your employees and all the kinds of things we've talked about in terms of healthcare costs. We didn't even talk about the team lead that's financially stressed. It shows up as a jerk every day, or the employee that shows up with their colleagues because
Right.
they're just stressed, right? How can,
Right.
and they're making life miserable as for other people and they're quitting, you know? Um, it's, but I think more and more employers are, um, particularly large employers are past the point where they think they can have a lousy employer brand,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And
It's
some companies worry about it a lot, right? Um, but it at some point it affects your customers. Like, I'm not buying for this company because they're a lousy place to work. I heard they didn't
right.
treat their employees well, right? And so,
Well, Tom, I
I
have to
think
tell
more
you,
and more
this has
people are seeing
been,
this thing.
yeah, I think this has been one of my favorite shows. So I love what you're doing. I know Ryan does as well because you're actually helping people while at the same time scratching the itch of it's good for the company. So really, there's no counter argument to taking you on as a service. So thanks for coming on the show. Thanks for telling us your story and getting people to understand kind of what can be. So we appreciate you.